I even had to look today. I look back on my InBody data, and I've got data on my InBody to track skeletal muscle mass for the last 7 years, starting in 2018. And I see the window of the amount of muscle mass that I've had is exactly the same. It fluctuates within about 3 or 4 pounds. In all this time, I've been ketogenic in 6 of the 7 years I've been carnivore. This summer, I took off weightlifting. I did not lift a single weight. I stopped my creatine supplementation. I went back to doing more of, riding my bike around, going on hikes, that kind of thing. My muscle mass went down by about 3 pounds. I started to hit the creatine. I did about 30 minutes of weightlifting per week. And my muscle mass went right back up to as high as I've seen it in the last few years. So the claim is like, you need carbohydrates to build muscle. Again, related to what you just said, it's so ridiculous. I don't understand why this keeps coming up. Like, what is it about carbohydrates that people say, like, is it just that anabolic response of the insulin that's supposed to be so magical for building muscle? Because I don't see it. I don't notice anybody on carnivore or doing intermittent fasting who is losing muscle mass. It just does never happen.
You're right, and it doesn't. And there's it persists because it's the accepted norm. And it takes 20 to 30 years to change that. Right. And we're only, God, I mean, it was their late 60s, early. So a lot of people don't realize this. And this was fascinating for me to learn. Um, it was the mid to late 60s. I believe the Olympics in 72 was kind of the turning point in the exercise science community's understanding that protein was not the primary substrate for energy in athletic events. It wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s that the industry said, oh, wait a second, carbs, that's where we came with this whole glycolytic effort became the thing, right? Where athletes started supplementing carbs instead of supplementing protein and started performing better. And people were going, hey, wait a second, applied science, get out of the lab into the field and start giving athletes carbs, and athletes are starting to perform better. What the heck is going on? And the paradigm, because here's the thing, this was the mistake. This is what was missed. We already knew about ketones then. They've been studied decades before. But nobody said, well, if this happens with carbs, what about fat? Because we had already set up in our minds back then that fat was just an endurance substrate. So when we started introducing carbs, nobody said, what about fat? How do we compare as we develop this new paradigm around carbs? Nobody said, well, what about fat in that process? So the entire new shift went from protein being the primary energy substrate to carbs being the primary energy substrate. Fat was never even evaluated. So an entire industry was born in the early 70s that basically said carbs are it, that's what you need, and that's where all the science. So now we get into the biased science, where because that was the mindset going in, all of the research and everything that was done, everyone walked in the door assuming that we're just showing how carbs help, not trying to validate that it's just carbs against fat or protein, right? We know protein wasn't working as well as carbs, so carbs must be it, that everything we do is based on that. And literally how we train, how we nutrient time, how we plan our macros, everything we do is so carb focused. And the literature is there to back it up because the literature never looked at anything else. So it's right now, until recently, the last 5 years, we'll talk about that. Until recently, it's been really hard as someone who's following a ketogenic lifestyle to say, hey, this works just as well. And in fact, there may be some additional benefits we're not talking about because there was no real research. There was Finney and Volek in 2018 or 2016, whenever the FASTER study was. There was a couple people here and there over the past 20, 25 years. But over 50% of the ketogenic diet, number one, is the most studied diet in the world right now. Number two, 50% of all of the research on ketogenic nutrition that's been done in the last 20 years is only 5 years old. That's huge in the amount of information that is 5 years is yesterday in science, right? There's stuff that I'm finding out about today that's 3 years old. I'm like, how did nobody know this existed? Right? Like, where did this come from? And I'm thinking, this is new stuff. And then I look at the date and it's like 2022. I'm like, what? What is going on? How did I miss this? What's up? Um, so there's stuff literally coming out on a regular basis at this point, and it is overwhelming. In the next 5 years, if I think right now, if anybody who is claiming to be an exercise scientist or sports nutrition expert has any questions about the efficacy, the sustainability, or the impact of a ketogenic diet on health, general quality of life, body composition, or sports performance, they are willingly ignorant because they're not looking. It's there. I can't think of any health issue that does not have ketogenic, that has not been researched and have a paper or data that supports a ketogenic diet improving that. And there's a lot of different health. One about PCOS just came out last week, right? All the stuff that's been coming out about mental health, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. We talk about all of the metabolic syndrome stuff, right? Insulin resistance, hypertension, gut health. The list goes on. Crohn's, there's some stuff out there about how it improves Crohn. Like, the list is expansive. And then when we talk about sports performance, we know that ketogenic athletes, this is documented even in studies that say at the end of their conclusion that ketogenic diets are detrimental to sports performance, right? We see in those exact same studies, increased fat oxidation, reduced RPE, reduced lactate production, increased glycogen preservation. We see all of these things, reduced inflammation. We see all of these things, but they say because of this one specific measure, movement economy, which is what our paper is about, because they used more oxygen, they must be performing worse. There's no actual performance outcome. It's a measure of oxygen intake that they say we're going to ignore all of these metabolic markers that improved. And because they used more oxygen, we're going to say it's detrimental to performance, even though we didn't actually measure speed, power, time to exhaustion, or any of that other stuff. Purely the number of studies that I have seen that measure purely metabolic indirect calorimetry numbers and make a conclusion without any actual physical outcomes and say that keto is bad for performance is shameful. It is absolutely like, you're saying it's bad? It's if they even in the title would just say bad for metabolic performance, that would be more accurate to the scope of what they actually studied, even though it's a misinterpretation of oxygen intake in a fat adapted context, which is what our paper was about. So that was a long rant, but yes, there's a lot of issues in the science. The data's there. If anybody says that keto's bad, they're willfully ignorant and haven't done any of the work to find the good data. Or just talk to anybody that's been doing it for a while and said, how's it worked for you?
Right, exactly. I was just thinking that, like, yeah, for you personally, you've been doing this for about as long as I have.
Yep.
You've added some years to your life, but I don't see you look younger and younger all the time. Like, if you had a massive dropout in your performance, surely by now you would have
gone up
noticed.
and it stayed up.
It's insane.
That's not the only thing.
There you go. No, it's same thing. Like, at this point, I should be able to do my 20-mile long bike ride that I use as a benchmark to measure my performance. It has not dropped off. It has gotten faster. Right. I am faster now than when I was competing in road racing 15 years ago. Objectively, when I go and play hockey with my buddies, which is a completely different activity, I'm now sprinting for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm chasing down 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and they can't catch me. Like, where is this drop off? And you're right. Like, Nicole, I talk about this all the time, but Nicole Laurent last year told me to go on to Google Scholar, type in the word ketogenic, and it will automatically email you new studies that come out all the time when the word ketogenic appears in the title.
It's almost every day.
it borderline annoys me. Like it feels like spam mail. I'm like, dude, there's another batch of studies I've got to like go through. It's like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's great.
fantastic. It's amazing. I love it. I'm actually so having so much fun doing the research I'm doing. So we'll talk about the paper that I just came out with. But I've also got, I mean, I have right now in flight, I have a clinical audit from a VA hospital doing informal ketogenic education and the impact on obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, and deprescription of medication. I'm working on that with a couple of the people. I'm working on and you know Alex McDonald.
Yeah, know of
I'm
him.
working.
I need to host him.
Yeah, you need to host him. You guys would hit it off. I'm working on a case study for him for his five marathons in 5 days completely fasted. We're doing a case study, so I'm writing that up. Um, I have a systematic review that I'm working with that is really getting close. We got the first draft done. We're cleaning it up. We're kind of going through the numbers again to make sure everything's good. But that hopefully is just a couple months away. And that is looking at answering the question, does carb supplementation improve CrossFit performance?